Hey there, and welcome to Life at a Glance podcast. I hope that you are doing well today. I am turning what feels like overwhelm into an asset today, and that is turning deadlines into your new BFF. Now, let's face it, when we have deadlines, I'm just going to give you an example. An example is around the holidays. I mean, there's only one day when the man in the red suit comes. And if it ain't under the tree, then it ain't happening, right? And isn't it funny how that deadline, it pushes, and you can't get anything else. Like, we can't get things in the store. Like, it is done. We are closed for business, and it literally has to happen. And in those moments, like, we may have everything like really well planned out. We've overloaded ourselves. We've overloaded the plate. And as the time starts to approach, guess what? Number one, we're checking things off the list, but things drop off the list that were not as important. Let's listen to what I just said. As the date approaches, we're checking things off the list, but things are dropping off the list that are not as important. And so that, my friend, is what I call your back up against the wall deadline. And I want to turn that into your asset. And your asset meaning that not something that creates overwhelm, but something that we all need deadlines. With my seasonal event, I could count on it. And so we would have consigners would register, and we had a system where everybody input all of their inventory into the system. And then we had a deadline. We had a deadline because we were downloading the inventory and uploading it. I think we had 30 computers. We had 30 different stations that people could check out. And we had to have a deadline in order for us to start that process and system of uploading all of the inventory, right? And so Saturday would happen, and the cutoff time was on Sunday at noon. No lie, consistent every single year. We could literally have between 10 and 15,000 items, between 10 and 15,000 items entered in. It was a deadline. They knew because we set the standard. We're like, it's okay. You can add more stuff. No, that train left the station. Backup was against the wall. And so how can we really use deadlines to our advantage? I think that number one, if I were to give you a task and I were to give you 30 minutes, you could get the task done. If I give you a task and I gave you 3 hours, same task, nothing changes, you would take 3 hours. There's actually a law, Parkinson's law, where work fills the time that we give it, the time that we allow. If we don't give ourselves deadlines, which is probably one of the hardest, right along with being consistent thing and being patient. Wait a minute. Let me do all of like the list of things that are really, really hard for us, right? To actually complete the task, right? And so let's kind of pull back. Let's take a look at, I like to give you 3. So we're going to talk about 3 things here. Why deadlines feel so overwhelming. Well, number one, just like at the very beginning of today's episode where we're talking about Christmas and all of the things, we're checking things off and things are dropping off. It's because we stack too much on our plate and we don't break it down into small, manageable pieces. Inside of Systems by Design, one of the things that I talk about is that first month that every member, I recommend you start here. It is, I believe it's week 3. It's your daily routines. Your daily routines are pretty simple, and I limit to 3 tasks a day, 3 non-negotiables a day that you will complete. And like, I can do 3 because I'm used to doing 20. What do I do when I'm done with 3? Can I go ahead and do tomorrow's 3? No. We need to stop this treadmill of always running and doing because we're exhausting ourselves, depressing our creativity. We need to stop. We need to shut the laptop and we need to move into our life seamlessly so that we can be present for our friends, our family, for our kids, our fur babies, for ourselves, right? We wait until the emotional pressure kicks in to take action. I see it all the time with my kids, and they all operate very, very differently. Ander and Maggie, they tend to, when Andrew was in school, like he would have work done way, way in advance. Maggie likes to get weeks of work done at a time. Thomas and Jack, a little bit different. And then Jack, it's so funny. He will procrastinate and then he gets like really amped up and then he does what he says he's locked in. And he's got all A's and B's. So at this point, I can't complain with that. We're afraid of starting imperfectly or messing up. I just did a session, and I know that you've heard this phrase, is that done is better than perfect. I want to get things done, not in a sloppy, messy way necessarily, but what I want to do is to collect the data to help me make an informed decision rather than a emotional decision. And I think that done is better than perfect has always served me. And there have been times where like, had I started it like this, but I also think on the same side of that is that I like to develop right with my customer. I like to take their feedback and I like to improve on things. And if you start making something and you take like 90 days and you get 90 days into it, you'll go back and you're like, wait, why did I do it this way? Hello, I'm raising my hand because I have done that exact same thing. So deadlines fuel overwhelm. So how can we stop that overwhelm when it comes to deadlines? Is that we can stop putting so much on our plate and really think back. I mean, I literally think back holidays, checking things off the list, things dropping off. This is bottom line what we get. And so reliving those experiences helps me to get out of perfectionism. And maybe that will help you as well. Reframe the deadline. And I think what's interesting about this one is, so each week I have a deadline for my content to be completed. And it was on a Thursday. And I noticed something that was happening. It would trickle into Friday. Well, I'm not supposed to be working on Fridays. So what am I going to do to change that? Well, I move it to a Wednesday now to make sure if something trickles, something happens in the week, that I know that it's going to be done by Thursday. Well, interestingly enough, I need to go to DC and I'm going to be there through the following Wednesday. So now I need 2 weeks of content. Oh my gosh, what do I do? Well, I'm not going to wait till I'm there because I'm going to be in a new environment doing new things and it's going to totally disrupt my pattern and system. So I'm going to lean into my system and go, okay, for the following week, I'm going to do my content SOP. And now I'm going to get ahead and the next day I'm going to do for the next week. That way everything is buttoned up. Everything is taken care of. I'm not stressing out. I'm not in 50 places at one time. I'm being very present in the situation that I need to be present in, right? And using a deadline to your advantage, there are different ways that you can do it. You can set timers in your project management tool. You can set reminders in your project management tool. You can go old school and use sticky notes. And you could even give yourself a mini deadline before the big deadline, right? And that mini deadline, if you hit it, if you go past it and you're not quite there, you've got to hit that big deadline. And I think giving ourselves deadlines with a consequence on the other side can be helpful. And the consequence doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, doesn't necessarily mean you need to go out and spend money as a good thing. This is the deadline. Like, I don't want to deal with I don't want to deal with the stress of doing this over the weekend. Like, I don't work on Sunday nights. I don't work on the weekends. And if I didn't have everything in order, then I would be doing things on a Sunday night for Monday morning's emails and everything that needs to be scheduled. No. I'm not going to do that. And so I know the consequence of not hitting my deadline. Even though I was working on Fridays, I still knew if I didn't do it on Friday, I certainly wasn't going to do it on Sunday. And consistency, systems help you implement that consistency, right? So let's just transition here and use timers. Use timers to help you get things done. The other day, the guys, I didn't know that they were coming and they were getting ready to do demo. And so I said, hey, and I'm not going to say the name, set a 30-minute timer. And I was just like back and forth, getting stuff out of the room so they could go. And the timer went off. I was like, crap. All right, set a 10-minute timer. 10 minutes. I was like, crap. I still had stuff to do. But it was very focused, very intentional. I use small increments of time, 10 minutes, 10 minutes for the win. There's a beginning and there's an end and there is a purpose in between. And I know that it is very intentional, very focused time, right? You can also do accountability, whether that is, you can use accountability with AI, you can use accountability with a team member. If you know somebody's waiting on you, I always, when I'm working one-on-one with someone, which I'm not currently doing, I always love to over deliver. Love to over deliver. I'll have it to you on Friday and they get it on Wednesday. Mind blown. So that's that mini deadline to the big deadline, right? And reverse engineer the win. And so if we know that something needs to be done by XYZ, then to get that win, what are the steps that we need to take? I always recommend doing little small bite-sized chunks. It's part of your daily 3 each and every day in order to get to the win. The idea here is, again, use a deadline to your advantage. If you say you're going to get it there on Friday, try to have it done by Thursday. Implement. And the biggest thing here, like in terms of implementation and actually getting the work done, guys, you got to have the process written out. You got to have the system in place. So no matter what hits you during the week, you will still be able to complete the task. Just like completely unexpected, I am leaving at the end of the week to go visit my son. Did not anticipate that. And I'm there through midweek. And so the system is what I'm going to rely on to help me get the work done earlier. And my bottom drop dead deadline is tomorrow afternoon. And not only will I have 1 episode, but I will have 2 episodes scheduled and ready to go. And so just know that if you're feeling overwhelmed by all of the tasks and like drowning in the fact that you don't have enough time, use deadlines to help get things done. Think back to your holiday deadline when you're starting to get and feel overwhelmed, and then just start to reverse engineer and always, always, always use deadlines to your advantage. Until next week, take care. We'll talk soon.